people make fun of the way that I dress and the necklaces, and rightfully so, number one. And number two, I don't care.
We all need to step into our weirdness and uniqueness. Like that's what makes the world interesting. Like stand in who we are is
Yep.
to be the crazy weird version of you, and your people will find you. And then it's no longer about blending in, it's about truly belonging.
I finally bought a shirt that said, I'm not for everyone.
In this episode, I'm sitting down with Khalil Rafati, our most recent Book Nook author of the book I Forgot to Die. This is an incredible story of someone who's literally dealt with the depths of drug addiction, homelessness, and went on to completely change his life. This is a great conversation for anyone who has either dealt with addiction in any form, which I think we all have in some regard, and wanting to do better and create better. And he's one of the most real, raw, authentic people I've ever met. You're going to love this one. So we loved reading your book. As you know, we just brought the book into the book club. And I think, there's a lot of places I want to take this conversation. As always, I love having a conversation with you because it's very real, it's very vulnerable, it's very open, it's
Thank
very
you.
no holds barred. And I think I want to start with, before we delve into like some of the more personal questions, is a lot of us know that you own and run SunLife Organics. And those of us that read your book know that you came from the background of addiction and homelessness and living on the streets. And now you're this picture of health and you're running this beautiful, do we call it a franchise at this point?
There's 20 of them, but we don't
20?
franchise stores. I don't know what you call it. I guess it was called by somebody who I really look up to. The guy, what's his name? The guy that the Equinox guy, Jeff Winehouse. Jeff Winehouse said, Khalil, you've created an American heritage brand.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So, ladies that are in the room, I would love to know in the chat how many of you have gotten to go to a Sun Life so far. So let us know if you have, let us know if you haven't. Cleo, they're in Austin, California, Miami, New York. Where else are you?
Chicago, Nashville, um, LA. I don't know. We're opening
We
in Boulder, Colorado in a week or two.
London. Someone's asking, are you coming to London? Shannon lives in London.
I initially, when I was learning how to surf about 6 years ago, there was this really sweet black kid, and we were learning how to surf together. And I thought it was so cool because I'm from rural Ohio, and black people in Ohio don't surf. Most people don't surf in
Most
Ohio, but
people don't serve in Ohio. I'm from Ohio too.
yeah, but anyway, he was so sweet. He was so kind, and I had a Yeti cooler full of Sun Life smoothies, and he loved the smoothie so much, and we really hit it off. And he gave me his number, and then I told him I would call him, and I never called him. And then I was at my Century City location, and here he comes, but now he has like this entourage with him, and he's like, "Mate, you said you were gonna call me. What happened?" And I'm like, I don't, I forgot. And he goes, well, I've been here every day. I'm like, okay, let me treat you guys. Treated them, they left. And then the kids behind the counter were like, oh my God, how do you know Lewis Hamilton? And I'm like, I don't. I know the kid that learned how to surf with, and he was really fun, but they educated me on who he was. He was really keen on opening up in London. I never followed through, but now we're doing a deal in South Africa with a group, and they're asking for first right of refusal to do London after South Africa. So it could happen. It could happen relatively soon.
It could happen. So is that in Cape Town? Is that where you're doing it?
Cape Town, Johannesburg, and Durban.
Nice. Okay.
Yep.
Well, we'll just have to do a world tour book club. So
Yes, I like that idea.
So when you've been to one of these places, it's magical and it's so hard to describe it. The way I would describe it is it's a place of connection. Like this is so much beyond a smoothie place. So you walk in, there's crystals, there's beautiful books. Like, of course, I go right to the books. There's some really cool clothes. I love your hoodies, your sweatpants. There is a culture like no other smoothie place. And, I see what I see when I go in there. And I want, especially for the women in the room, but also for any listeners who perhaps haven't gotten to go to a Sun Life yet and can probably get to one at some point along their travels. What was your intention behind creating this space?
As you know from reading the book, I was 109 pounds and open sores and, hair falling out, teeth falling out. Um, my friend Sean, my hippie vegan buddy Sean, came up to Topanga to bring me some food, and he brought mason jars full of freshly pressed juices and raw almond butter and raw macadamia nuts and mineral greens and pure synergy powder and goji berries, and not what I was hoping for. But he was a vegan yoga teacher, and that was his jam. And I ate all of it, and I felt that life force flowing into me, and it was unmistakable how if you go from chain smoking cigarettes all day and drinking instant coffee and eating cheese and Wonder Bread and maybe some powdered Gatorade mix, like that's how destitute I was. At least I had a roof over my head at that point. But if you go from eating that shit to putting real raw living foods into your body, you're going to feel like. Also, I began to expel some really horrendous stuff out of me, mucoid plaque and parasites and all kinds of shit. I became addicted to it. I'm an addict. I'm still an addict. I just switched the ingredients. And
Yeah, I want to talk about that later too.
yeah, and I just became obsessed with it. And then eventually, when I was able to open my first business, Riviera Recovery, I was giving it to the clients, and I was watching them like get off their psych meds and quit smoking spontaneously and having these miraculous experiences. And I thought, man, I got to just open up a little juice bar right around the corner, serve my neighbors, serve my friends. If I could serve 100 people a day, what a dream that would be. So my intentions were to give people the experience that I had and that I had watched others have. It was pure and simple. It was never to make money. I was making about $40,000 a month at Riviera Recovery, sometimes $60,000 a month, which doesn't seem like much to a lot of people these days, but to me, I hit the lottery. I mean, I had never seen that kind of money in my life, and I hated it. I was miserable. I couldn't stand being in that business. I couldn't stand being around sick people all the time.
Mm.
So we never thought about money, cared about money, looked to make money. There's so much of this newspeak talk of intentions and community and all that shit that came years after we had opened. But I literally wanted a place where I could meet my neighbors and strangers and housekeepers and day laborers and movie stars and billionaires, and I could make them these same smoothies and these same juices and these same shots and concoctions and all that, and always make sure that it was 100% organic or wild crafted or clean or whatever. And that was the intention. The intention was never to build an American heritage brand. The intention was just to open up a little juice bar and hopefully get to serve 100 people a day.
You did that. I think something really important to highlight too about SunLife Organics, you live in Austin, you live in a bubble, right? And I live in Miami, and I live in a bit of a bubble too. But I think for the broad audience here, like, we're not just talking about, this isn't like frozen strawberries and almond milk. I mean, you're putting like bee pollen. And let's just touch on some of the other ingredients and the power that they have for bringing back your life force. We don't have to go too
I mean,
detailed, but
I was using colostrum 20 years ago. I was putting colostrums in smoothies at SunLife Organics 14 years ago. Nobody had ever heard of colostrum. People were horrified. The vegan movement was huge at that time, and I was getting attacked left and right by many of the same people who now are bragging about how they're paleo and primal and whatever. But putting royal jelly, real raw royal jelly into the smoothies, getting the Premier Research Laboratories salt, that super pure, amazing salt. I created a greens powder that we put in a lot of our smoothies. That took me about 13 months to create. I went to Kagoshima, Japan, and I sourced, after 2 trips to Japan, I found the greatest matcha on the planet, and we sell it retail and we put it into the smoothies. So it's the best of the best of the best. And some of the, you know, like the holy cow smoothie, I don't really talk about it too much because it does have liver and spleen and heart and all kinds of organs in it. And it would freak a lot of people out if I talked about that. But that's one of my go-to smoothies. I mean, that's got 50 grams of real nutrition, protein and nutrition in it. So yeah, just to call it a smoothie shop is a little bit insulting and not very accurate.
I know whenever I am with you, I'm like, I can't just say that word. I mean, we were
Yeah.
we were together in Austin. This is what, at the beginning, Cleo was talking about that tool, that show we were at. I've talked to you guys about this in the community. I was struggling at this event a little bit and definitely latched on to Khalil, my buddy. I was like, I'm not feeling it here. This is like a really weird feeling I'm experiencing. And literally the next morning, I Uber eated one of your concoctions, your drinks. I was like, I just need something, I always like to think that we can get into a better energetic state, or we can, we don't have to always look outside of us to feel better. I always want to be able to create it from within, but I was struggling. I needed a crutch. And I say all this to say, like, these aren't just smoothies. You've created magic in there, and it's not just what you're putting in people's bodies, but it's the whole energy of the space. And I think this just is kind of where I want to start this conversation with you, because to me, it's what you embody. Like you've taken this organization and you've created it through you based on how you live. And so I could see how, your intention wasn't necessarily to make money, but to create a space that you desired, because then you were able to live more in this energy, in your intention. And through that, your life has completely changed. And so I want to ask, in this experience of opening these 20 stores, like, what has been maybe the biggest like cherry on top that has surprised you through the journey?
When I was newly sober and I was reading all those different books by the supposed masters, ascended masters, or whatever, the Bhagwan Sri Rajneeshas and the Krishnamurtis and the Paramahansa Yoganandas and the Sai Baba, all, whatever, the hugging saints, and they all would talk about service, being of service. And I can't remember which one of them said, maybe it was Ram Dass, but like, to serve is to rule. And I just remember, being broke and wanting a Rolex and a Porsche and those things that were going to ultimately fix me. Ha ha ha. I remember thinking, that's so stupid. What a dumb thing. Oh, to serve is to rule. You're just flexing. You're just easy for you to say. You have all these people giving you their worldly possessions and worshiping you and carrying your robe as you walk. Like, I thought it was so dumb. And not that many years ago, I remember just feeling the happiest that I'd ever felt in my life, and feeling such purpose and such meaning in my life, and being so in love and so happy and not needing anything. Ironically enough, getting to the point where I could afford the watches and the cars and all that shit, and really not needing or wanting anything. I was very happy with the way that I was able to spoil my mom. I was very happy with the lifestyle I could provide for my girlfriend, but really just getting to the place where the best company I could find anywhere was my own. Just walking with God and asking God to hold my hand and asking God to be with me and being comfortable in my own skin and not having to be distracted. And then one day I just heard that, like that echo, that whisper of that sentiment, that to serve is to rule. And I was like, that's crazy. Because I feel like, and I don't mean this in the like life coach arrogant way, but I really do feel like a king. I feel like a king. I feel like I've created this beautiful kingdom, and I feel like I get to be the king, and to serve is to rule. And I got it. And then about 3 months ago, I was watching Gaia, and I was watching a documentary, and I can't remember. I think that maybe they were talking about Neem Karali Baba, but they were talking about one of those cats, and gurus, whatever, saints, enlightened beings. And he got to the guy's feet and he said, "How do I find God? How do I find God?" And he was crying, and the guru said, "Oh, that's easy. Serve people." And he's like, "Okay." And then a couple days later, he came back and he's like, "No, maybe I didn't phrase that right. Like, how do I become enlightened? How do I become enlightened?" And the guru said, "Oh, that's easy. Feed people."
Hmm.
And I'm like, holy shit. Holy shit. I get it. I am not enlightened, but I am,
Yeah.
like, I feel the essence of enlightenment in the process of getting to treat you or Garrett or Nicole or a stranger to one of our products and feeding people, or sometimes just sitting in there as a fly on the wall and listening to people take that first sip and go, "Oh my God, whoa, this is amazing." And to think, wow, I was able to create something that didn't really exist before.
Yeah. Well, I think you are enlightened, and I think we just reframe the word enlightened. You're full of light.
I feel
And
that. I feel
that's,
that. Enlightened. Oh, I like that. Yeah. I'm full of light because I serve and because I I get to feed people. I think it's one of the coolest things you can do. And and I remember now all those moms that used to make me breakfast and lunch back when I was a little kid who probably could tell that like they weren't serving love at my house. And they
yeah.
would make me those peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or those ham sandwiches, and it would taste like the best sandwich I'd ever had in my life. Well, there's a reason because a mom made it, and I
Hmm.
and I needed that love so desperately. And yeah, I'm very privileged. And I'm still shallower than shit and pretentious, and I like shiny things, and I am going to buy another watch, and I do drive a G-Wagon. I don't mean to present myself as some do-gooding, tree-hugging, aspiring saint. I'm not. I'm a man, flesh and blood, and I have a lot of character defects and a lot of flaws, but I found deep meaning in life through my vocation. Deep, deep meaning.
I think it's beautiful too because you don't fit inside of a container, and I don't think any of us really want to. Like, you don't have to be a Buddhist monk to be enlightened or to live from light and love. We can be regular people and
Yeah.
still, walk with God or be connected to source. And it doesn't have to look one way anymore. I don't think it needs to be so black and white. And I think that's why a lot of people are attracted to you because you are that way. You don't fit in a box. And so it reminds us that we don't have to either. That's for me a big part of it.
Yeah, yeah, I really grabbed on to that trying to think of who said it. They said initially that Nelson Mandela said it, but it wasn't Nelson Mandela. I think it was Marianne Williamson. The poem about like when you make yourself small, you're not serving anybody.
Yeah.
It's when you shine so brightly that you
You give
give.
other people permission to.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was Marianne
That
Williamson.
was Marianne. Yeah.
Yeah, but people attribute it to Nelson Mandela.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
I've only read it as her.
yeah,
Very powerful though, because I think we all tend to play small to make other people feel better when in fact it's the total opposite.
yeah. It serves no one. It serves no one.
Mm.
And not and like wearing masks and trying to please others and people please and be what you think somebody else needs you to be. That never ends well. I'm speaking from personal experience. I did that my whole life, and it's not worth it.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It's not as fun. I want to go back to something you said at the beginning. You said you're an addict. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, I think this could go a few ways, but if you still ever crave the feeling of getting high, but I'd prefer to start with, why do you still consider yourself an addict?
Well, I'm never going to not be an addict. I mean, I have, if you saw the amount of supplements and vitamins and superfoods that are strewn about this house, or if you saw the amount of, crystals that are around in my house, I mean, somebody would call the cops. Like, I am so addicted to crystals. I'm so addicted to taking supplements and all that stuff. Like, I'm an addict. That's never going to change, but the ingredients have changed. I don't think you can ever stop being an addict. You're always gonna you if you really watch addicts, like real true addicts. I'm talking about like um real addicts. I was going to say something really graphic and gross, but I'm remembering my audience. Um, you'll typically see them become marathon runners or Ironmen or ultra runners, or you'll see them become workaholics, or you'll see them switch addictions and become sex addicts or love addicts. Gambling is a big pitfall for many addicts. that hunger and that drive, that insatiable hunger that is inside, that is a hunger for the light. That's a hunger for source, God, whatever you want to call it. And there's certain things along the way towards reaching towards our divinity that if I'm drinking collagen water or playing with my crystals or my weird devices, I'm probably going to feel pretty good.
Hmm.
But if I'm going for a cigarette or if I'm going for booze or I'm going for pornography or infidelity or masturbating all the time, um, I'm going to feel like shit, and eventually it might actually just completely fuck my whole life up. I mean, I am not a sex addict by any stretch of the imagination, but I definitely got into the love addict shit early in my recovery. And you think no harm, no foul, right? They were adults. I was an adult. We're in recovery. Uh, yeah, that's great. But if it happens to be a client at the rehab that you're working at,
Oh God.
not so great. And you could lose your life over something like that. You
Yeah.
could be with someone's wife, which thank God I learned my lesson when I was a kid. But thank God it was nothing like that. But yeah, I'm definitely an addict. I don't think addict is a bad thing. I think it's a superpower. I think it's something to be proud of. I think it's great. Um, but if it becomes gossiping or it becomes Netflix or character assassinating people or shopping for shit that you can't afford, you got to switch those ingredients up. Otherwise, it's going to take your soul without your consent.
I love that. So, I mean, essentially, I think we're all addicts. I mean, ladies, if you want to put in the chat, what are you addicted to? I mean, I'm addicted to caffeine. I love my caffeine. And it's all about, like you said, checking the ingredients. So can we formulate these addictions to things that make us feel really, really good, but aren't just that short, quick dopamine hit, right? Whether it's Netflix or social media or caffeine, switching those to nature or true connection.
Or
Khalil,
what
what do you think?
or what if it is Netflix or reality television shows and then you subscribe to Gaia? And
Mm,
then, or what if you agree that one night a week you and your husband are going to pick a book, or you and your boyfriend or your girlfriend are going to pick a book and you're going to read a book together? Like, there's so many different ways you can switch up your addictions, and it doesn't have to be punitive. You don't have to go become an ultra runner and run 220 miles, right? You can
yeah.
just you can just like, instead of getting up in the morning and going for that cigarette, you can go for some breath work, or you can say, hey, I'm addicted to cigarettes. I mean, this is what I did.
Mhm.
I'm smoking a pack a half a day. I'm not doing any drugs anymore. This is kind of dumb. Every time I take a drag, I'm telling myself I hate myself. Why don't I like just only smoke? I think at first it was 5 cigarettes, but I eventually got it down to 3 cigarettes a day. Why don't I just only allow myself that morning, that afternoon, and that evening cigarette? And instead, I'm going to start hiking,
Mhm.
or I'm going to start doing yoga, or I'm going to start taking vitamins 3 times a day. I'm going to break up my vitamins into 3 different times a day. And like, it's really, really fun. You can use it to your advantage, and you can get it to make you a fortune or bring you love or bring you peak optimal health. Like, addiction's awesome. Just be mindful of what you're addicted to.
Yeah, you dropped something really big here, and I think this is really important to like zoom out and lock in this concept because if this is someone's biggest takeaway, I think this is one of the greatest things. Addicted to get us, what did you say? Like feeling connected to God or source, right? That's what our
Yeah.
addictions are trying to pull us to. Is that correct? So
Yes.
so if we switched when we're reaching out for that thing that we're addicted to and maybe replaced the word, if we're noticing I'm addicted to this or I'm drawn to this because it feels good, what can I add in that's going to actually help me feel connected to source, to God, to myself, right? Because then we're sharing a concept and everyone can fill in the blank with what works for them. And I think we maybe even lay out some examples of like, what are things that we could put in that help us feel connected? You just talked about one, hiking in nature. So
Yeah.
like swapping our Netflix addiction, our desire to sit and binge watch, I love that, right? Sometimes we all want to be passive, but is that actually going to make us more connected to ourself or source or God? Whereas instead we could swap that with Gaia. If you guys aren't familiar, Gaia is a platform, I think it's like $8 a month. And it's beautiful documentaries that remind you that source is within all of us. It reminds us of our oneness. We're not separate. So we're still getting that little like dopamine hit and fix, but we're actually leaving that experience feeling more connected.
Yeah. And there's Masterclass, there's Gaia, there's I mean there's so many, I have them all. There's so many different ones that you can subscribe to, but the point is like if you're gonna do something over consistently over and over again, like I work out 3 times a week and I work out like a maniac for an hour 3 times a week. And I pay a woman a fortune to get me to work out like a maniac, and she had to be a very specific special kind of woman. She had to be insanely hot but also be a mom and also be a wife and also be nurturing and loving without being inappropriately flirty. Like she allows me to flirt and she flirts back, but not in a way that is a thirst trap that leaves me wondering if I could maybe, you know what I mean? Like there's none of
Yeah.
that shit.
You
It's
like
just
that maternal, it's like that maternal connection. You
it's
can flirt,
safe.
but I'm going to keep you in check.
Yes, it's safe. Like
We
Garrett's wife,
flexible.
Nicole. You know
Mm-hmm.
Garrett's wife, Nicole. And you
Yeah.
could probably even see my relationship with her. Like it is nothing but flirting incessantly and compliment, almost worshiping her, and he loves it. He absolutely loves it because I'm transparent about it. And when you're transparent about it, there's no ickiness there. There's no weirdness. She's
Yeah.
not wondering if I'm trying to bone her, and I'm not wondering if she wants me to do that to her. She knows I'm obsessed with her. She's obsessed with me, and it's healthy and it's fun. And my girlfriend thinks it's great because it gets me out of her hair. And he thinks it's great because then he can go surf or he can go talk to the guys about surfing or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's really cool. But my point back to putting that much time, effort, and money into that addictive behavior, because it is an addictive behavior. I am obsessed with working out now.
Mm-hmm.
The result is I am so insanely fit for me. I am so freakishly strong and have amazing endurance. And it makes my love life, I guess, is the polite way of saying it, so much better. Like my woman deserves to have a man that is physically powerful, that can dominate her in the bedroom if that's what she wishes to experience. And you can't do that if you got a dad bod and you eating too much bread and pasta and you're skipping the gym and you're watching the game instead with the boys and you're drinking your beers. Like all behaviors, all habits, all addictive, most of them, right? Look at any guy that's a football fan, soccer or American football. Are they kind of into it? Or are they obsessed and they make statements like, I can't believe we lost last night? Like, buddy,
Yeah.
yeah,
You weren't there.
you didn't lose. You watched a bunch of people making $20 million a year win or lose while you sat at a bar eating peanuts, stale peanuts, and drinking fermented rotten hops and yeast and sugar in a fizzy water. Like, gross.
Yeah, it's, just speaking really real here, like going back to what you said about getting in shape and bringing that to the bedroom. As a woman, it's not even, and I wonder, I mean, I think we have all women here in the room, and I would love to hear what you guys think about this. It's not even for women that in shape or not in shape. It's the energy. You think about, and this doesn't, I don't think just relate to the bedroom. I think this relates to connection in life. We are magnetically attracted to people that have a certain energy, and that's a connected energy. And so when for you, Khalil, go to the gym, you feel incredibly connected and you go bring that to SunLife. You bring that to your girlfriend. You bring that to your relationships. That's what it is. That's what I think is our main job and priority as humans, is to find what makes you feel most connected, what makes you feel most enlightened. I'll dare to be so bold as to use that word. Like, let's go out and do that. Let's stop playing small and let's make those our most important things. Someone in the chat said they're hitting the shopping cart a little too, it's too, I think they're talking about Amazon when we're talking about addiction. It's just so easy to do click and add to cart. It's definitely a dopamine hit. And I think, we could always come from a place of guilt and shame, but I don't know. I always just like to add in more, meaning let me add in more good or effective. And then slowly the other shit will clear out because you don't crave it as much. It's empty, right? It could
Yeah,
still stop. We could still do our stuff, but like, let's just
yeah,
do more of the stuff that actually connects us.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly.
Nancy says, yes, I agree. It's more the energy in the bedroom. Hot body is a
Well, women, I mean, listen, women are much more forgiving. Women don't really care that much about surface level stuff. But I will say, as a lover who is, with someone that is so far out of my league, that I know she appreciates me being in the shape that I'm in because she's made comments multiple times. Also, endurance wise, you know, you want to make sure as a man to feel like a king, like a proper mate. You want to make sure that they are thoroughly sexually satisfied to the 10th degree. That takes physical. I mean, I don't know. She's also like a foot taller than me. So I guess
yes.
all the working out probably helps me to contend with all that extra. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's a very physical act. And I wasn't when I was in my 20s and 30s, I really felt like I was doing some girl a favor by hopping on top of her, and whatever. And I didn't realize until my 40s, like, no, buddy, you're there to serve. You're there to make them feel all of those sensations. And you have no business even coming close to climaxing until they have had their fill of climaxes. And whether some women are, it's one, and some women are, it's 10. And you better get your knee pads out or whatever you got to do, and you better make that happen. It's a very physical act, and I'm 55, so I want to be doing that when I'm 85. So when I'm doing these single leg balancing dumbbell Bulgarian squats and all that, that is what's going to allow me to be, a proper bedroom mate, or surfing or paddleboarding or doing yoga or whatever it is. So that it's a great addiction for me because it pays off in so many different areas in life. When I go into a business meeting, and I
Hmm.
typically dress, I wear a t-shirt and whatever, shorts or sweatpants. And when I walk into a business meeting, some of the most famous or richest, wealthiest, most successful people in the world, almost 10 times out of 10, I'll walk in, and if they haven't met me before, they'll go, "Holy shit, you're in amazing shape. How old are you?" And I'm typically they're much younger than me, but look much older than me. And they're just like my deal in West Palm Beach. I could be exaggerating a little bit, but I think 90% of the reason I got that deal in West Palm Beach is because the guy that was one of the heads of Related could not get over the fact that I was 10 years older than him, but looked 20 years younger than him. And he wouldn't stop asking me questions. And it finally got to the point where the broker's like, "Hey guys, are we going to do a deal here?" And I was like, "Hey man, listen, take my cell number. I'll give you everything I got. I'll share my trainer with you, my doctor with you, what peptides I do, my supplements with you." But being in insane shape, I hate to say it, in the world we live in today's day and age, it opens doors for you. It
Yeah.
opens doors for you. I can't see the rest of you, but Melissa, like, you could walk in and I couldn't know you from Adam. And based on looks alone, I'm going to give you whatever you want. That's the world we live in. And that's important to recognize that. I hate to be a smartass, but Chris Rock said it best. Like, if you're good looking, you're going to have a good life. If you're good
Yeah.
looking,
I
you're going
mean,
to have a good life.
it is true. It's definitely not where I thought this conversation would go, but I think this is why I love having conversations with you because it gets really real. And I will say, I want to come across as humbly as possible with this because it's never to me been about looks. I've never been someone who resonated with I'm pretty or anything like that. It's never been part of my identity. But I do know that looking a certain way has made my life a little
Of
bit
course.
easier. It's easier for doors to get opened.
Of course.
However, I will say, if I didn't have the energy that I emulate or the personality or like the interests or like my addiction to knowing people, like truly knowing
Yeah.
people, the
Yeah.
relationships wouldn't have gone as deep. And I don't think I would have kept the opportunities or kept the doors open that I would keep. And so I just have to highlight that because I think I don't want someone who maybe doesn't feel that certain aspects are accessible to them. I think we can all benefit from getting as healthy as possible. I think because that changes the way that we carry ourselves.
For
Just like
sure.
Nancy was
I
saying in
yeah,
the
and I
chat, it's the energy that we emulate, right? It's how
for
we
sure.
feel.
For sure. And it's sort of like having money, having all your bills paid and escaping Maslow's hierarchy. It's a lot easier to be spiritual.
Yeah.
A lot easier to be spiritual when you've got a couple of bucks in the bank. It's very, very difficult to meditate and to feel the presence of God when you're broke. It's not impossible. It's just in my experience, it's a lot easier to be spiritual when all your bills are paid. It's a lot easier to have doors open for you, literally doors open for you,
Yeah.
and doors open for you metaphorically when you look great and you're glowing and you're beautiful. And that doesn't mean I'm not saying that you all, that people have to look like Cindy Crawford in order to have a good life. One of the most beautiful women, if not the most beautiful women that works in my company, is a very large woman. And I don't know if she's large because it's genetics. I don't know if it's large because she maybe ate a lot or whatever it is, but she's so beautiful that every time we get on a Zoom, it's hard to not focus on her. It doesn't, she's so beautiful, it doesn't matter that she's so big. And I mean, like, she's a very big woman. It doesn't matter. I don't mean to sound like such a pretentious asshole. I'm just pointing out certain truths that I've experienced in my life. I know damn well that if I were 4 inches, 5 inches shorter and bald and fat, I don't know if I would have the brand that I have. I've been able to build an empire on being mildly attractive, mildly in shape, and mildly charming. I mean, I took what I had and I capitalized on it.
Right. But I think the most important point to make in all that, though, is that's accessible to everybody. We're not born
Of
with or
course.
without looks because look at you in your 30s, right?
Ooh,
You created this in how you live. And so beauty came through you once you
yes.
started living in alignment with source. True?
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
God. I know some of the aesthetically most perfect people on the planet that are horrendously ugly.
100% because their energy is so disgusting.
Yes, and there are women in my gym that are as plain Jane as it comes with, you know, B cups and whatever. They're not in your classic typical shape and they're so hot and I'm like chasing after them and wanting their attention. Yeah, no,
And
it's
beautiful woman that you spend 5 minutes with them and there's nothing and it changes everything.
100%. Yeah,
Energy.
no, my girlfriend doesn't own a dress. My girlfriend doesn't
She's so
own
cute.
makeup. My girlfriend doesn't like do her hair. Like, I mean,
She's
it's
beautiful.
amazing. She's
Hmm.
beautiful. Yeah.
She's absolutely beautiful. So one of the conversations I wanted to ask you about, and some of us in the community had talked about this leading up to this, you know, you talked about it in the IG Live, right? The harder you work, the luckier you are. You are never someone who's like relied on or depended on luck. Speaking of doors opening and such. But in reading the book, there are definitely situations where there was someone else's hand in your life.
Yep.
And I would love to know your opinion on that. Like, for instance, I mean, for everyone who's read, you know what I'm talking about. But for anyone listening to this podcast, you've got to grab this book anyway. But as far as like ending up in a job and all of a sudden you find out it's Elizabeth Taylor's house,
Hmm.
or having some crazy interaction that leads you into like a Diet Coke commercial,
Hmm.
or crashing a car, having drugs on you, and the cop letting you go.
Hmm.
So, what is that?
That's authenticity, and that's drive, and that's hunger, and that's going for it, and not giving a fuck if I fail. Because if I wouldn't have gone door to door with a bucket and a chamois and got the door slammed in my face over and over and over again, I wouldn't have driven to Santa Monica, Porsche, and Audi in 1993 and asked them if I could detail their cars. And even though he gave me a car to detail, more importantly, a couple weeks later, he sent me to BMW of Santa Monica on 17th Street. And I went in there, and the GM there was the opposite. He was the biggest prick in the world and was so dismissive and said, "Why would I have you do our cars? We have our own detailing shop here." Basically, like, "Fuck off." And I
Mm-hmm.
was, I was 23. It felt like boiling hot water on my skin. It really hurt. And I went back to Lodi, the GM of Porsche Audi, and I was like, "That guy wasn't very nice." He's like, "I know, but I'm just trying to like get you some extra work." And a month later, I got a phone call from that guy saying, "Hey, listen, you said you detail cars and you go to people's houses." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, we got a customer that just bought a BMW and they want somebody to come up to their house and detail their car. And can you do that?" And I said, "Yeah, here's the info, 700 Nemes." That was the address. And most people wouldn't go door to door. And even after getting 100 doors slammed in my face, most people wouldn't just keep going. Most people, when they crash their car and the cop walks up to them and said, um, you know, are you drunk? I think my response was, "No, I'm on drugs." Most
Mm-hmm.
people would never say that. And when he said, "Do you have drugs on you?" most people would have lied and said, "Absolutely not." And then they would have went to jail. I said, "Yes, tons of them." And he said, "What?" And I said, "I got all kinds of drugs on me and needles and whatever." And he was like, "Get out of the car and go sit on the curb." And so I went over there and sat on the curb, and then everyone showed up, the ambulances, the fire trucks. And then he came over and he said to me, "Listen to me very carefully. They're going to come over here and they're going to ask you if you want medical attention. You're going to tell them no. I'm going to call you a cab and you're going to go home." I'm like, "Okay." And he said, if you say you want medical attention, there's going to be blood work involved and you're going to go to jail." And I said, "I understand, officer." And it turns out that guy was an AA. I didn't know that, but being authentic, being transparent, and having that hunger and just going for it, just going for it. Um, I think most people just play it safe. They just play it safe. And life kind of slowly passes by in the beginning, and then it really passes by quickly once we get into our 30s and 40s and 50s because our routines keep clipping away at our experience of time. When I was a child, the summertime used to last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to blink and it's going to be fall. Why? Because I have my routines down, because I'm doing the same shit over and over again. I have my habits down. I have my whatever. I'm not going out. When I was a child, I would get up in the morning in a Speedo, no shoes, no shirt, in a Speedo, and I would just follow creeks for miles and go through. I don't know what you guys called it where you live, but we called it 7 minute itch. I think it's maybe stinging nettles, but I would
Oh
go.
yeah,
I would go.
itchweed. We
Yeah,
call
I
it
would
itchweed.
itchweed. Yeah, I would go through fields of stinging nettles, and I would chase butterflies with my net and almost never catch them. I would always like build dams and try to catch the crayfish. I was constantly walking to the mall by myself and watching movies in the afternoon. I wouldn't even care what movies they were. I just wanted to go and get away from the hellish existence that I was living. So, because I kept creating all these new experiences, time was like this. And
Mhm.
now time's like this. So, I never played it safe. And I suffered greatly as a result. And I also benefited greatly as a result.
Yeah, well, it really comes full circle to something you said earlier, and that might end up being pre-recording, I'm not sure, but you said people are either going to love you or hate you. Like, and so I wonder if in the moments where you're about to be full on Khalil, and maybe for a minute you question, is this too outlandish? Is this gonna trigger someone? If it's moments like that that you go back to that are your anchor, like, yeah, it's gotten me here.
Yeah, I mean, the greatest, I mean, I was sitting in Soho House I don't know when it was. It must have been pre-pandemic, but I was sitting in Soho House, and John Paul DeJoria, the guy that started Paul Mitchell Hair,
Oh, okay.
and Patron, and 200 other companies, he came up to me, and I was eating with people, and he came up to me and he goes, "Hey, I just want to ask you. I go into your shop, and I ask them every day if I can get that smoothie that my wife gets, and they always tell me that I can't get it." And I said, "No." And he's like, "What do you mean, no?" And I said, "No, you can't get it. That's not on the menu. That's a special smoothie. That's a smoothie that I get." And he goes, "Well, why can she get it?" And he like pointed over to his wife. And I looked at him and I said, "Look at her." And there was like a pregnant pause, and then he got it, and he started laughing so hard. And he said, "God, I would love to have one of these in Austin, Texas." And I said, "Yeah, we don't do that. We don't do franchises." And he's like, "Well, what about if I gave you the money? What would you give me?" And I said, "It's just not something that I'm interested in doing." And he said, "Well, what if I gave you all the money and I donated my profits to charity?" And I said, "What kind of charity are we talking about?" And he said, "Feeding homeless people and housing them and drug testing them and teaching them a vocation." I said, "You have my ear." And he goes, "Great. How much is it?" And I said, "It's $1 million." He goes, I said, "It's like $1 million." He goes, "It's like $1 million, or it's $1 million?" I said, "It's like $1 million or less." And he's like, "Good to know." 20 minutes later, he walked up with a handwritten contract signed. "I
Wow.
will give Khalil $1 million or less to open SunLife Organics. I will donate my profits to charity, Mobile Loaves and Fishes, which is the charity that it's a Christian charity that feeds people and houses them and drug tests them and teaches them." Um, I could have kissed his ass when he walked up. I could have gotten weird and tried to impress him. I could have like flattered him, but instead I was just myself and I told him the truth. I don't want to go through the shit of like calling my team and telling them when this older guy comes in, you got to make it. No,
Yeah.
when Eloise walks in, because she's just so radiantly amazing of a human being, you make her whatever the fuck she wants. As a matter of fact, don't even charge her. I think those were my instructions to them.
Mm.
And from that authenticity, this store is like our third busiest store in the chain now. We're doing like 1,800,000 a year out of 1,000 square feet. I paid him back all of his money with so much pride. And now I go and I personally hand deliver him checks because he doesn't do email and he's not really like a texter. And I hand deliver him these checks for, tens of thousands of dollars pretty regularly. And he just tells me how proud he is of me and how, I mean, it's the greatest life ever. But without a high school diploma back then, I finally got one last year, but without a high school diploma, without any skills, without any talent, I learned to communicate. I learned to be myself.
Beautiful. It's
Just
the
be
most important
yourself. Yeah,
thing.
just be yourself. God loves you. I love you. Be yourself. Be kind to people. Allow yourself to dream. You got to allow yourself to dream. Putting pen to paper, writing a 1 year, 3 year, and a 5 year plan, doing your vision board, all that stuff like that shit's real. It works. I promise you. I'm living it.
I love it. Well, I'm excited. In a minute here, we're going to go into the private room with my private community because they're itching to ask you all their questions, especially based on all that. But maybe a last question for you, Khalil. If the young version of Khalil was looking back at you now, what do you think you would be most proud of?
The way I took care of my mom, for
Mm.
sure. The way I took care of my mom. Uh, I think he'd be really impressed with all the shiny stuff, the cars and the houses and all that, for sure. Because the young Khalil was always so obsessed with that type of stuff. Um, but the way I took care of my mom, because I never felt loved. I never experienced love. My mother was suffering from Stockholm syndrome because my father just beat her into that state of being. And my mom never held me. My mom never loved on me. My dad never like loved me. It wasn't until Corey Kiefer, who was my little girlfriend in junior high, um, that was the first time I felt love. Um, and And it's sad because I was terrible to her. I was horrible to her. I mistreated her so badly. Thank God. Thank God we're best friends today. We text all the time. We talk all the time. I take her on trips. I take her shopping. My girlfriend loves it. She's like, take Corey. You know, it's like my girlfriend doesn't like shopping. My girlfriend, I'm a lot to handle. So I have an amazing relationship with her. But the wound that my mother left, the emptiness that I felt that was probably never going to go away. What I found late in life was that if I gave her the love that I needed, if I called her every day and said, I love you, mom, I love you, mom, even though she's fucking driving me nuts, even though she's fucking crazy, even though she's just like, why did you get rid of the other business? And, you know, she was always like that shrill in her voice and that panic and that complaining. If I sent her, you know, a coffee can full of ones and fives and tens, she'd call me screaming like she hit the lottery. And if I sent her envelopes with 5,000, 7,000, 10,000 in it, because I would regularly go to Vegas. And then when my friends would go back to Ohio, I'd be like, here, hand this to my mom. She wouldn't call. If I called her and said, hey, mom, did Teddy give you anything? No. She would get really weird about it. Like, I bought her the house and she did nothing but complain every single day about something about the house. It doesn't matter. I gave her the love that I needed. And in the process, that hole that was left became filled up with that love.
Mhm.
And that's what the little boy would appreciate so much, because that little boy, I go back and revisit that little boy almost on a weekly basis with my healer, with Kimmy. We do a lot of inner child work. We do a lot of epigenetic imprinting, healing, and generational curse healing, and all that stuff. And some of it is ketamine assisted, so I'm able to dissociate and really go back to those ouchies and address them. And that little boy, that little Khalil, is so fucking sad and scared and full of shame and full of fear. And ultimately, it wasn't the things that were done to me. It was the way that I felt that allowed those things to be done to me. The fact that I didn't feel safe sharing that, the fact that when I did share it, my mother said, he's just tickling you, go away. That was the damage. The damage is not somebody touched my naughty spot. I think a lot of people had some weird uncle or, you know, some swim coach or with me, all of the above. Um, I think all of us went through some weird shit like that, most of us, but it's how we felt where we weren't able to process it, where we buried it deep down inside of us. So yeah, I am today living in an almost constant state of freedom and liberation from all of that shit through the love that I gave my mother and through the work that I've done with Kimmy.
I love it. Do you feel like you're worthy of love now?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So good. I love that. I can see it in your face.
Yeah.
So, final question, and then we'll go into the private Zoom room here. I can't wait to have the other side of this conversation. But you know, a lot of people, as we were reading this book, I was getting a lot of private messages on how many men and women have been inspired by your story and have gone sober because of it.
Wow.
Anyone that is either, you know, dealing with addiction or not enough or unworthy, what would be like the most important thing for them to hear from you?
Surrender, surrender, surrender. Join the winning team. Surrender has been beaten into us to feel like it's a bad thing. It's a addiction is a bad thing, and you know, don't tell anybody your secrets. That surrender, surrender, and join the winning team. And once you bring a little bit of light into whatever it is that you're hiding, and you think that you're hiding, once you bring a little bit of light in, that darkness dissipates and people will see you as you actually are. I carried a lot of shame around. My behaviors were horrible. I mistreated girlfriends. I was a cheater. I looked at a lot of porn when I was a kid. I stole things. Like I did all this shit, and like deep down inside, like I just felt dirty and ugly and bad. But when you surrender and you ask God for help and you share your derelictions, your sins, your whatever with another person, that's the beauty of 12-step programs. Like, I used to think I was so fucked up. I used to think like, oh my God, if anyone ever knew what I did when I was 27 or whatever. I remember having these secrets. Then I started sponsoring guys. And then I started having them tell me the shit that they did. And I was like, after 10 years of that, I was like, wait, I'm a prude. Like, I am like, oh my God, like the shit that I did, it seems so dark and so bad. And this old guy, I'll never forget it. And I think this is what he meant. And I think this is what he said, unless I misheard him. But he's like, all you youngsters out there walking around with your secrets. You're only as sick as your secrets. You think you're hiding that shit from people. You're not hiding anything. And he's like, and let me tell you something. Every one of us in here, but some of us pluck the feathers off first. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I remember being a little kid and like folding a steak in half or cutting a hole in a watermelon or whatever. Like, there was no latency period with me. I thought that there was something so wrong with me because of those behaviors. No, it's not a big deal. I was over sexualized. I wonder why.
Yeah.
It's stupid. So surrender, surrender, surrender.
I love it. Thank you, Khalil. Thank you for showing up as just the beautiful human that you are
Thank
and
you.
enlightened because you're light in a city of darkness or in a world that can be very dark. But I think that comes through, like you said, just living your authentic self and letting it through and let that old guy be the wise one who shares that. I think
Yeah.
we get to an age and stage that he obviously hit that's like, screw it, no secret,
Yeah, who
live how you
cares?
live. And you hit it earlier.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. All right. Well, thank you for being here. If you guys resonated with this message, which I'm sure you did, go ahead and share this with someone that you love. And be sure, if you haven't already, to grab Khalil's book. We'll link it in the description.